News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. And there's your closing bell to end this dramatic week on Wall Street, where the S&P and the NASDAQ both entered correction territory. But today they clawed back some of those losses. We do bring you closing numbers each day here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 gained 117 points. NASDAQ up 451 points. The Dow gained 674 points. The 10-year Treasury yield at 4.31%, and the 2-year yield is at 4.02%. And we do need to talk about gold for just a moment, because today gold topped $3,000 per ounce for the very first time as investors move to safe havens. It's not quite that high right now. Gold is little changed on the upside, up about 20 cents, now trading at $29.91 per ounce. Shares of Apple are nearly 2% higher after Siri's chief called AI delays ugly and embarrassing. Some key features on Apple's Siri were publicly promoted before they were ready. Senior Director Robbie Walker says it's not clear when those features will launch, but it won't be until next year at the earliest. And now let's go to Capitol Hill, where Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer shocked his Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate when he said he plans to reluctantly vote for a House Republican funding bill to avert a federal government shutdown.
I will vote to keep the government open. It is the best way to minimize the harm that the Trump administration will do.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi was not buying that. She called Schumer's decision a false choice between a government shutdown and giving President Trump a blank check. House Minority Whip Catherine Clark.
Shutdowns are terrible, but so is this dismantling and this scheme to take deserving taxpayers' money and give it to the billionaire class.
Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley says he'll vote against the bill anyway.
We know, as we look in history around the world, that an authoritarian individual needs to be fought sooner than later. So it's a big mistake if we come down on the side of providing votes for this Republican plan.
And back on the House side, Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' caucus is in an open rebellion now against Senator Schumer.
Is it time for new leadership in the Senate?
Next question.
And Senator Patty Murray is leading opposition to that spending bill. President Trump has appealed to Russian President Vladimir Putin to spare the lives of thousands of Ukrainian troops as the U.S. looks to persuade Russia to agree to a 30-day ceasefire with Ukraine. Putin responded he would spare the lives of Ukrainian troops in the Kursk region if they laid down their arms. Putin added he sees progress in relations with the U.S. and that Trump is doing everything to restore ties with Russia. Earlier today, the Kremlin said Putin had asked American envoy Steve Witkoff to convey messages to Trump ahead of a possible phone call between the two leaders. Now, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says relations with Russia should be normalized once the fighting ends in Ukraine. Rutte's biggest task is to keep the U.S. engaged in NATO. He met with President Trump yesterday at the White House, where the two discussed a potential U.S. brokered ceasefire in Ukraine.
It is normal if the war would have stopped for Europe to somehow, step by step, and also for the U.S. step by step, to restore normal relations with the Russians. But we are absolutely not there yet. We have to maintain the pressure on them to make sure that they are willing to engage seriously in talks with the American administration and, of course, also with the Ukrainians.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte on Bloomberg Television. Consumer sentiment fell to a more than two-year low, and long-term inflation expectations jumped by the most since 1993, illustrating more apprehension about the economic impact of tariffs. University of Michigan Director of Consumer Surveys, Joanne Shu, says it's worth noting the trend.
What we saw this month was an 11% drop. That in itself may not be notable, but what is critical is that it follows two previous months of pretty strong declines. We're now down 22% from the very beginning of the year. That is a pretty long sustained drop, and it reverses 6 months of increases that we were seeing at the end of 2024.
Shu says the drop is among Democrats, Republicans, and independents. The number of measles cases in the United States has already surpassed the number of cases in all of last year, and it's only March. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reported 308 confirmed cases across 15 states today. That's a 39% increase over last week's numbers. Most of the patients are either unvaccinated or they don't know their vaccine status. 2 people have died. Round 2 of the Players' Championship is underway at TPC Sawgrass. At last check, Minwoo Lee and Akshay Bhutia share the top spot on the leaderboard. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris, and this is Bloomberg.